Welcome back. The last couple of days, I've just been playing some bots on chess.com at my son's recommendation to work my way up through the lower rated bots and see how far I could go. But I don't want to do that too many days in a row, so today I've decided to do some puzzles, continuing my puzzle run number 4. If you're new to my channel, I'm not a titled player or a chess coach like many other chess YouTubers. I'm just a random person trying to get better at chess. One way that I do that is try to solve puzzles, which I'm doing here. Last time I did break 2,000, and I always use my checklist, which is to look for checks, evaluate the checks, and then look for captures and evaluate those. And if that all fails, then I look for threats. Here I do have at least 2 checks, and it looks like neither one of them is checkmate. I have a check in the corner protected by the bishop, but the knight could just capture down there. I have a check right in front of the king, but it looks like the queen could just capture right there. Those are not my only checks, however. I could check here by taking this knight. It looks like the opponent would have multiple options. If I did that, they could take with the queen, in which case I still would not have checkmate in the corner because the king could just move out. I wouldn't have checkmate here either because the queen could just capture. Wait, let me back up. I missed something on the first check. The knight can't take in the corner because it's pinned currently, so I think this is just a checkmate in 1. Yeah, the knight can't take because it's against the rules to put yourself in check. So I almost missed that, but I think I discovered it because I was talking about this check here. So is that checkmate? Do they have any other recourse? The king can't capture or move out of check because the queen would be covering all those squares and the bishop is covering that one. The knight can't take because it's pinned. Okay, I think I have checkmate in the corner. That took me a little longer than it should have, especially since that's one of the first 2 checks that I saw immediately. And once again, the theme is incorrect here. Mate in 1 and pin are both correct, but passed pawns is not one of the themes of this puzzle. There is a passed pawn in existence on this board, but it is not a theme. However, chess.com has removed the ability to downvote themes or add themes of our own, so I'm going to try to ignore them and go to the next puzzle. Do I have any checks in this puzzle? I don't have any checks in this puzzle. Neither one of my rooks can check in any direction. Do I have any captures? Other than that pawn, the e5 pawn, no, I do not have any captures. But let's evaluate it just in case. It looks like they would take back with the other pawn, and then I would be down a rook and still can't check. I guess I could attack it, but at that point they could take my a pawn, so I don't think that's any good. Do I have any threats? Let's see. And threats is the part that I'm weakest on. I'm usually pretty bad at determining what might be a threat. And sometimes I ask myself what I would play in a game here, and I think what I would play in a game here is pushing my a pawn, because they're attacking it and moving it forward is one way to defend it. And then I think what I would do after they played their a pawn, I would probably slide up trying to take, and I don't know what they would do. Actually, if I pushed this up, they might drop this rook back to be attacking this pawn, and then maybe try to bring their king over there. So if I don't have any checks and the only capture is this pawn, which I'm pretty sure is not good, then I have to go to threats. What are my threats here? I think one threat is moving the rook over to d5, my front rook, because then I would have this threat here. It would be protected by the pawn, it would be a check, it would be attacking their rook. If they took me, then I would capture with promotion, and if they didn't take me, then I would take them. But they have a move in between there. After I play rook to d5, what does my opponent do? Do they bring their king forward so that they don't have that check situation down there? If they did that, I could still check. Then I assume they would bring it forward again, and then I could still put my rook on the back rank, threatening their rook. It doesn't have anywhere to go other than taking the pawn, and if it took the pawn, I would capture, and if it took my rook, I would capture with promotion. So do they have anything else if I play rook to d5? I suppose they could still come down and threaten my pawn, but then I would have to check again. And I don't think it works to come over here. If I went to that side, not only could they just take my pawn, but then I wouldn't have a check because I'd be on the wrong side of my pawn. So I'm not 100% sure, but I'm going to play rook to d5, and if that's wrong, we'll go to the analysis board and find out why. Oh, that was it, and they did come forward. Okay, I feel good. Sometimes when I do those, there could be something I'm completely missing, and it's like, oh, they make this other move, and oh, I don't know what to do. Or sometimes my move is wrong for a really obvious reason that I missed. Well, what I said I would do here is check them, and then when they got out of check, I would go down, but shouldn't I just go down first? Because I think I'm guaranteed to either win a rook or promote a pawn, and I don't have to check for that, because again, their rook can't escape. What else can they play if I go directly to d8? I mean, if they try to come forward, I take the rook, and I think we already discussed if they take the pawn, then I get the rook, and I have 2 rooks, and they're in check, and if they take my rook, I promote with not check, but they're down a rook. So I think I skipped the rook to d7 because it doesn't do anything. I mean, it just brings them out closer, and I don't want them to be closer. I want this to be a check if they take the pawn. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go to rook to d8, and again, if it's wrong, we'll find out why. It was right. Oh, and they went down here to get this rook. Should I just take it and then they get this pawn, but then I'm still up a rook? That was the whole point of going down here, is to be up a rook. I don't think it helps to check, because again, they come closer and then I have to get that rook out of danger, so I think I just take the rook on b1 and let them have my pawn. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. I was hesitant at every step of the way because, again, the threat thing is something I'm not very comfortable with. Usually the checkmates start with checks, and so they're easier to see from the beginning, and usually the captures start with a trade or something like that. But the threats, like in this case, very often the threat is just moving a piece over, and yeah, those are hard for me. Oh, and I'm happy that this one has a lower than 50% pass rate. Let's go on to the next one since I'm doing pretty well so far. Okay, they have attacked my queen. However, I think in this case I can get both rooks. Let's see, if I take their rook, it's a check, and if they block the check, yeah, see, that's not that great, is it? If I take the rook, they could just take back, and if they just take back, then I'll get their other rook, and then they could block the check, but they probably wouldn't block with the queen, they would probably just block with the knight, and then I've gotten 2 rooks for a queen? Let's check that again. Check. I assume they would take with the rook, and then I take with my rook, and they block with the knight, and then I still have another rook that I could bring here to attack their queen, protected by my knight. That doesn't seem winning to me. We're even on material right now. And if I got 2 rooks for the queen, and then I would have 2 rooks and a knight for their queen and their knight, I don't know. Usually Stockfish doesn't really count it as winning to give up a queen for 2 knights. What else can I do here? I can threaten their queen now. Sorry, let me back up. Do I have any other captures besides the one I just said? Not really, because I'm not counting this pawn. Okay, so I am skipping on to threats, because that's my only check. That's my only capture, those 2. Okay, what about a threat? Putting the knight here on e5 threatens their queen. Where would it go? It might just move over one and be pointed down through here. It might just move over another direction. Oh, wow. Okay, well, that last one felt pretty hard to me, but this one feels even harder. I'm going to go back to the check, because if there are checks and really forcing checks, then that's very often the answer, especially if there's a queen sacrifice. I know that the higher rated the puzzles get, the more likely there are to be a big piece sacrifice. So let me just re-examine this. What else can they do? Well, normally the advice given to those of us that are lower rated is to not make the move until you're sure, until you've figured out what the puzzle is. But at some point, there's a point of diminishing returns that 4 or 5 minutes have passed and I still don't have any idea. And that's my only check. In a game here, what would I play? I think in a game, I would just slide my queen out of the way and see if they wanted to trade rooks here, and I would still end up with a defended rook on e8, controlling that open file. That's what I think I would play in a game, but I'm pretty sure that's not the answer here, so I don't know. I'm going to take the rook and we'll find out what happens. Okay, that was it. Well, now it doesn't make sense since I just gave up my queen for a rook. It doesn't make sense to not take that rook, I don't think, because, I mean, should I threaten the queen now? That also doesn't make sense. So I'm going to take the rook. They did block with the knight. All right. Okay, I'm glad it was right 2 moves in a row, and they did exactly what I thought they would, but this is the reason that I didn't know that that was the right answer, is because here, what do? I do have a check, actually. I do have a check, but they will capture, I assume, with the queen, and then I don't have anything. I can threaten the queen right now, but it can just move over and be threatening my rook. If it does that, I mean, I could check again with the knight, but then they could just take that with their queen, so pretty sure that's not it. I'm pretty sure it's not just giving up the rook now. Is it threatening the queen now? What if I put the rook on d8 where it's defended? Where does the queen go? It could just move over and threaten that rook, but then I could go to the back rank and be threatening something there. Where else could the queen go? The queen can't threaten the rook other than c3. And if it did c3, I could go down, and I'm threatening to give up 2 rooks for the queen and the knight, and I would have a knight left. Okay, does it threaten anything to go to e8? No. The only thing that threatens anything is rook to d8. So I'm going to play rook to d8, and if it's wrong, we'll find out why. Oh, that was it, and it stopped. Oh my goodness. Oh wow, and of course there's no theme to that puzzle, because I don't know what the theme would be, but I am going to look at the analysis board really quick. I feel like I spent way too much time on that. Okay, it was about even until they threatened my queen, and it goes to -5 if I take it, so I did. They have multiple moves here, but their best is to take back, as I assumed that they would, and my only move that's -5 as opposed to +5 is to take the rook, okay? And their best move was to block with the knight, but it's surprisingly not that much worse to block with the rook. I mean, to block with the queen. And if they did block with the queen, I would take it, as I said. And then they would take with the knight, and then I would have a knight and a rook left. But blocking with their knight was slightly better, and only one move. If I do anything else, it's even or worse. And rook to d8 was the answer, but then it stops. See, I thought they would go to c3, and that is one of the top 3 moves listed, but it would have just been just as good to go to a3. The reason that I assumed c3 is because that's what I would expect a human to play, which gets the queen out of danger and threatens my rook. But it does say I would go rook d to d1 if they played queen to c. Actually, that's my next move, no matter where they move the queen. Okay, and h3 is their best, it says. I assume that's because they're threatening a check here. And it does say that after I play rook to d1, they're going to check, and I'm going to block with the knight, which is protected by that rook. And then they're going to play g4, and then I'm going to take the rook. Okay, so rook to d1, their best move is to check me. Was that an only move? Going back to mine. Okay, it wasn't an only move. That's why the puzzle didn't continue, because I could have just played h6 or f5. f5 would have blocked them coming down, but wouldn't they have just taken f5? It says no. Yeah, I wouldn't have played f5 because it looks free. Well, that's why the puzzle didn't continue, but I am curious that after they checked me, would it have been bad to just get out of check? Because then they would get this pawn and then the knight. But it's actually not that much worse, because that's what I would probably play in a game, but then I would realize, oh no, I gave away my pawn, but then I can block with the knight on e7, and they can't check me again without taking the knight, which would be bad. Their best move is to move one of these 3 pawns so the king can get away when I check here. Sorry, either the h or the g pawn, because I am going to get that knight with check. So let's say that they play their best move. I'm just going to take the knight, correct? Yes. Okay. And then they, of course, get out of check this way, so it's not mate. And then I'm going to check them again. They're going to come out, and I'm just going to casually move up one or bring this rook back over. And I'm just ahead because I have an extra piece. Okay. Wow. I think I understand that. I don't want to spend any more time on it, but oh my goodness. I'm proud of myself for finding that. Next puzzle. Okay, well, let's look at the checks first. I do have a safe check here, which forces the king over. And then from there, my knight would be guarding these 2 spots, g8 and g6. Actually, the king could come to either one of those 2 squares on the h file. But then I could check with this rook over here, and they would... Wait, is that it? Sorry, I hadn't even looked at all my checks yet. I think those are my only 2 checks. I don't like the check on h6 because I think they could just take. And even though that puts their king and queen on the same file with nothing between them, I can't pin them or anything because my rook's not defended here. This looks good. Yeah, the king has to vacate to the h file, and it doesn't matter which one they go to, they can't come back to the g file. And then I think I'm going to have mate. They'll have to block with the queen, but then I'll just take it. I'm going to try that. They did go over there. Well, then it has to be rook to h1, doesn't it? I'm pretty sure. I think they have to block with the queen, and then it's mate. Really? And that one was rated 2159? Oh my goodness, that one seemed orders of magnitude less difficult than the previous puzzles. And I solved it quickly enough to get 12 points because the target time was 41 seconds. And this one has a barely 50% pass rate. I'm really surprised by that. Okay, maybe I'm getting better, but that one seemed easier than the previous puzzles. I have time for a few more, so why not keep going? Why not keep going? That's usually one of my famous last words, and right after that I do really poorly, but let's see. Let's look at our checks. I have multiple checks in this position, like a lot of checks, so I'm going to evaluate all of them. I'm going to start with my queen, and sometimes I miss queen checks because there are so many often. This is a check, this is a check, this is a check, that's a check, this is a check. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 checks with the queen. My goodness. I think I'm going to discount the checks on the A file because their rook is pointed right through there. Well, now that I think about it, that one down there is not a check. My goodness. Okay, I definitely need some practice then. So there's 4 checks with the queen. No, I'm wrong again, and I told you I often miss checks with the queen. There are 6 checks with the queen. Well, let's go there. Let's say there's 6 checks with the queen. I don't think the one on A4 is good because, as I said, the rook can just capture there. For that matter, the king can capture there. So it's probably not that one. Taking the A2 pawn is not check, as I incorrectly said earlier. The queen to B1 check is probably not good also because their other rook could capture it there. So I'm going to go ahead and undraw those lines. Moving the queen to b3 is probably bad because the pawn could capture there. Even though my bishop is defending, I think the pawn could capture there, so I'm going to delete that red line as well. Taking on c3 check is probably bad because the king could capture there as well, and I only have a bishop left after that. My opponent has all kinds of pieces all over the place. I just have a queen and a bishop. So I'm going to discount that check as well. What about queen to b2? It's safe. The king can't go here because of the queen. The queen cuts off this whole file and this spot over here. The bishop cuts off this, and my pawn cuts off there. So that would leave the king only one move. Let's erase those arrows. The king would only have one move. Nope, two moves. And in both those cases, I would be able to check with the pawn, but I don't know if that's good. Wait, I don't think I would have to check with the pawn. Once the king is over on the A file, I can check with the queen again, and when it comes back, I could win the rook. But my opponent still has more pieces, so I don't think it's winning the rook. I think there's a mate. Wow, the way that my time is ticking down over here, this will probably be my last puzzle. Okay, I don't think there's a mate here because there's two choices. Check with the pawn, it's down. If I check again, the king gets behind the pawn. And I don't have a mate there. Actually, I would have a check here, but then the king gets behind again. And then I have to take the rook, and it's not check. And they still have a rook and a queen and a knight over there. Okay, what about this other one that I haven't considered yet? Queen to e4. The king can't go to the light squares because of my bishop, and this whole rank would be cut off by my queen. Pawn covers here. But that leaves them three moves, each of which I would have to come up with an answer for, and at least two of them I don't know what I would do about. No, I think either one of these two down here on the fifth rank I could check with pawns. But what if they went to a3 over here? I couldn't check again safely. Okay, so it's probably... Wait, is there something I'm missing? Something really obvious? Like I can just take their queen or something? No, I don't see anything where I can just take their queen. Okay. Well, that's sad. You know what? I also have this pawn check. Before I go back to queen to b2, let me consider c5. c5 doesn't give them a ton of options, does it? Yeah, it does. Okay, well, the bishop's cutting off those, the queen's cutting off these, the pawn is hitting that square, and the pawn is protected by my d pawn. Okay, so they would have three choices. I don't think they would choose a3, because then I would have mate over there on a2, protected by the bishop. So let's say that they chose one of these other two options. If they chose a5, then I could check with the queen, and they would have to end up here anyway, I think, or there. And if they chose a4 to begin, no, they can't choose a4. What were the choices again? Oh, they could come straight forward. If they came straight forward, I think then I could check queen to b2, and they have to end up on the a file anyway. But then what would I do? Then I would take the pawn, and then they would have to come back, and then I could, oh my goodness, there are too many options here. I don't have the mental capacity to evaluate all of them. It's either queen to b2 check or c5 check. And at this point, it's kind of like flipping a coin. I'm going to play c5 just because pawns are more fun to check with. Okay, it wasn't that, so I'm guessing it was queen to b2, and that might be wrong as well. No, that was it, and the puzzle would have stopped. What? The theme, again, is passed pawns? No, there are no passed pawns on the board at the moment. Come on, chess.com. And mate in 3. Well, if it's mate in 3+, the plus is important there. It might be mate in 12. But if it's mate in 3+, why did the puzzle stop? Well, I hate to end on a down note, but I'm out of time. Okay, so white was way ahead if they had just not done that. Oh, they had to play d4 here. That's the only move that saves them. Okay, well, they didn't know that. So they played over here, and I have to play queen to b2, and it's mate in 2 now. So it was mate in 3 until I played that. And as I said, they had the two legal moves, a4 and a5. So I'm guessing I have multiple moves depending on which one they choose. What if they choose a4? Oh, I do have multiple moves, but only one's the fastest. Okay, so if they choose a5, again, I have multiple moves. Okay. All right, well, let's go back to this one. What's the problem with that one? No, the problem with that one is that they're now suddenly way ahead. They just shouldn't go there, like I said, because that's mate in 1. So if they go to a5... or b5. Wait, it says if they go to b5, they're still way ahead. I thought if they went to b5, I could check here. And if I checked here, they're going to go to a5, and I need to make a bishop move, not a queen move. Really? Well, how bad is this? Then they just go to b6, and then wouldn't I check again? And then they come down here, and I can't check anymore. Oh, wow. Backing up. After I checked with c5, it says their best move is a5. Couldn't I take this pawn with check? But they're somehow way ahead, and it's because they're going to be able to escape down here. Even if I come check them, they're just going to run away, and I can't follow them safely. Okay, that's what I didn't see earlier, I guess, back here at the beginning. But this one's a forced mate in 3. All right, well, what was that puzzle rated? That puzzle was rated 2200 and has less than a 50% pass rate. Okay, well, I don't feel so bad. And the target time is 17 seconds. I'm never going to see that in 17 seconds. You saw how many checks there were to evaluate, and each one of those is going to take me several seconds at the very least to evaluate, especially if I'm talking out loud, but it took me a while just to see all the possible checks. All right, well, hopefully I haven't reached a ceiling, certainly not a permanent ceiling. Hopefully I've reached a temporary ceiling that my brain still needs to, to expand, to make some more neurons. I don't know if brains my age are still making new connections or not. It's nice to think that they might be. So anyway, thank you for spending your time here. Hopefully you got something out of this. Hopefully you're getting better at chess too. And I'll see you next time.